Alright, now this comes to the little details, and this will be kind of fun. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to be drawing in or painting in our roses. And this is just going to be a very simple procedure as well. It's going to be the same process as everything else. Once again, just dab everything in water. So just make it pretty wet. You know, it doesn't really matter how wet it gets. Just make sure that it's nice and shiny. Just make sure it's not too oversaturated. So if it's too oversaturated, meaning it gets too warped really fast. So just, you know, a nice coating of water will do. On both sides. Well, we can just do one side first. So once we have a light coloring of that, we're going to take a number 22, nice pink, and what we're going to do is we're going to dilute that. And then we are going to be painting our roses in this color. So it's a very, very light pink. And unfortunately, this light doesn't do much justice. It's a little bit too shiny, so what I'm either going to do is I'm either going to face this away, which looks fine. Basically, it's a very light pink. I'm not too worried about coloring over the lines at the moment because it's just a wash. We're going to be covering this with a little bit of green later. The green can wait. First we'll start with the flowers. So you can see how pink that is actually. Actually a little bit darker than I wanted it, but it's okay. I'm just spreading it out. Basically just blocking everything in, as always. And once all that's done, we can just wait for that to mostly dry. And then we can move on. So now it's trying to get really warped, as you can see. All that water is definitely taking a toll. So I'm going to wait, and I'm going to wait for this to dry, and then we can move on to the next steps. I'll try to keep this from warping by bending some of the paper here. But so far, you know, this is looking great. Anyways, I'll be right back. Alright, so now that the water has calmed down, what we can do now is add some darker values. So I'm going to take my thin brush now, and I'm going to go one by one, using a little bit of number 32, which is a kind of a pinkish hot pink. And we're going to once again dilute, and then we're going to paint. So I'm going to zoom in on one side. I'm just going to do one side for now. I'm going to do this side here because it's kind of nice to have. So I'm going to mix this in with our previous color here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paint in these shadows. Actually, this looks a little bit hot, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to dilute this. So I'm only going to be doing 2 values for these, just because I don't, you know, I want the main subject, which is the girl, to have the most amount of level of values. So these will just be 2 values, because I don't want it to catch attention away from the subject matter, which is the girl. So once again, just mixing both the number 32 and number 22 together. Just adding every shadow kind of like under the layers of the petals here. We can even add a little bit of, deeper colors for some flowers, just because it kind of looks nice. It kind of gives a little bit of difference in color and tone. So I'm going to add some as very dark and some as a little bit muted. So I'm going to add some pockets of deep reds just to kind of get that in there. So I added a pure number 22 color. So look how nice that looks after that, after, putting little bits of pure color in. Kind of really makes it a little bit more lively that way, rather than monotone. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit, see what that looks like. Looking good, pretty good. I need a little bit of shadow on this area here. So areas where, the flowers overlap, I want to paint in a darker tone. We're almost done with this illustration. So far it's been a blast painting this thing. So once again, I'm going to dilute some of these values here. I'm going to zoom in so you guys can see it better rather than see a warped piece of paper. I'm going to put my palette to the side. Pardon the noise. I'm just going to be adding bits of shadows. Adding some water just to kind of spread the color just a little bit more. I'm going to make this one a little bit redder. Just to give it that pop there. Because these are a lot lighter in color, I'm going to actually give it another pink wash of pink. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue using this pink and color some dark flowers underneath. To keep moving my paper up. So I want this to be kind of reddish, just to give a little bit of a pop once again. And once all of this is dry, I'm going to add in my dark values again. So add in some shadows. And so far, the flowers are on their way to becoming done. If you want, you can even add a little bit of violet just to give it a darker hue. So I'm going to wait for these to dry so I can add a little bit more to it. I added a little bit of violet into this color mix, just to kind of use a little bit of a different tone here. So I use a number 176, which is a violet. It's like a red violet, which works well for adding some darkness to the pinks. So it looks a lot more vibrant. I lied when I said I just wanted these to be 2 values. There. Now, since these must be dry, I am going to add a little bit of values in this one here. Oops. There. added just a little bit of more of those darker values down here. I want these to be differentiated from the skirt, so I'm going to make these a little bit darker. Adding a little bit of violet. Actually, adding a little bit of violet to the mix won't be too bad. I'm going to take a little bit of that violet again and just kind of stipple in some areas. Kind of make a little bit of visual interest. Because it's quite dark, it can pop out some of the flowers even more. Looking good. Let's see what this looks like as a whole. Not too bad. I want to add a little bit more of the violet around the corners here just to kind of pop these flowers out. So far, this is what they all look like. Looking pretty nice. Any bits of this violet really kind of pops the flowers out. So I like doing that. There. So the pink flowers on this side are done. Now I'm going to wait for those to dry. And in the meantime, I will be doing the other side. So once again, I'm just going to be doing the same thing. I'm just going to be repeating the process. That's my water. So I'm just going to be adding my pinks again. My really deep pinks. I'm going to dilute these a little bit. And I'm going to add a little bit of this nice red. This looks a little bit too pink, so I'm going to just fill this in and just call that a really, really dark flower. Using that, I'm going to use this as a shade. So this will be a very dark flower. And this will have a little bit of shade. This will have a little bit of a tint as well. A little bit tedious, but it's okay. I enjoy tedious sometimes. So I'm taking this, once again, this red. And I'm going to be using that for my shadows. Just for like a nice little tint. I'm going to use this one. I'm going to make this one red. I'm going to make this one lighter. And then I'm going to make this one really red as well. And then these can have a bit of shading as well. So I'm just once again putting shadows in between the petals just to kind of show a little bit of shadow. So look how nice that looks. I'm not even like trying super hard either. I'm just kind of like just putting in some patches here and there, following the forms of the petals. That's all I'm really doing. It's going to be a little bit more pink towards the ends. There. So now I'm going to add a little bit of violet, just once again, just to kind of reinvigorate my little flowers. So I'm going to use that violet to add a little bit of shadow to my flowers here. Just these little dark patches would be really, really nice to add. So as you can see, it kind of just like brings it out a little bit more. I like to add it around the crevices here, just because usually those areas would need a little bit more shadow and dark points. I want to make this part really, really dark, so I'm going to add the violet in there. Just adding these in little tiny pockets, just to pop them out, as always. I'm just repeating myself, honestly. Honestly, a lot of these videos I repeated myself on. Oh well. Okay, so now once all these violet parts are all done, we can get onto the leafy greens. So we're 13 minutes in, which isn't too bad. So for the leafy greens, this is just going to be pretty simple. I'm going to be taking a 117, which is a olive green look. And what I'm basically just going to do is I'm just going to paint them. Paint all these leaves that color. It looks a little bit icky at first, but don't worry. It will vibrate. I'll make it more vibrant later. I actually like this green, so I actually think I might just keep it like that. Just make it a flat color. So I'm choosing this green because it's kind of a nice warm green. And even though it looks kind of like olive green and not as pretty, you know, at first, it looks really, really nice when compared with pink foliage like this. So you don't want to use a cool green, meaning like an aqua green, because then it wouldn't really show the pinks, the cool pinks as much. So if you have warm pinks, you know, like warm pinks like orange pink, you know, salmon pink, use cooler leaves, use cooler tone leaves. But when it comes to cooler pinks, you know, like this magenta, use warm greens, because that will help make it a lot more vibrant that way. So I'm really just adding this one green color, and I think I'm just going to do that because it looks great. Looks more like kind of vintage almost. So I'm just, once again, just adding that same color everywhere where I see leaves. And that gives it a nice pop of color. It makes the pink really stand out, which is what I like. So you can see that the more we block in things, you know, we start light first, you know, block everything in first, the process goes a lot quicker. Alright, now to the other side, just do the same thing. Just fill everything, every green leaf with this green, and you're good. You don't need to add much dark shadows or anything, because this is more of a graphic color. It's more of a graphic color purpose, or it's more for graphic read and vibrancy than it is, you know, trying to make it realistic. That was an ugly leaf there. So I also want to surround the roses with a little bit of green as well. I think organic things are usually one of the easier things to draw, but can be quite difficult at times because, you know, you want to make it look nice. You gotta make sure that, you know how flowers and all that stuff work. And leaves and the like. Okay, we're almost done here, and it's starting to look, you know, more finished, which is good. forgot this one flower here, so I'm going to add a little bit of that pink and just add it in there. There. So the flower swings are pretty much done. They look really, really cute and have this really, really cute vintage feel. 17 minutes in, I think I can make one more rose, which is on her head, and that will just be that nice pink rose that I see on the other flowers. So I'm going to fill that all in. And I'm going to wait for those to dry. That's super cute. I actually really like this piece. Okay. So once that dries, which will probably take a little bit, let's actually get started on maybe the little flower petals while we wait. So flower petals are easy. We could just fill these in with that same pink. You know, some can be lighter pinks, some can be darker pinks. But I want the ones in front of her body to be quite, noticeably pink. So I'm just going to fill in everything with this pink here. Maybe I'll put a little bit of violet in some of them. Oops, there's my Wacom pen. Wow, this is such a vintage vibe. I love this. All the pinks and the grains. I think it's fabulous. Okay, so we're almost done here. We are going to be coloring in the rest of these petals. And then we are finally going to be putting in a little bit of violet in some of these petals too. So let's put a little bit of this purple in some of these here. 1, 2, maybe this one here. Just kind of hints of this purple would be nice. 3, kind of shows a little bit dark colors. Maybe add a little bit of shadow on this one. Let's add one here, some so some randomness is good. Kind of makes everything feel a bit more like have a little bit more variety. Okay. So now let's finish up the rose, which will be pretty simple. We'll have that one dark color with a little bit of that violet. And all we really have to do is just shade in the petals. So just kind of layer in these shadows where the petals are, overlapping each other. Especially around the bud area. There. Perfect. So let's see, we have 20 minutes left, which we can actually color in the butterflies. So the butterflies can be a nice cream color. So if you want to make a cream color, you can basically take, a nice number 76 here, which is like a yellow orange, and then kind of water it down a little bit. Actually, I like these yellow butterflies. I would actually make them just pure yellow here. So yellow works well with pinks and blues and greens. So I'm going to just make these both yellow instead of cream color, because we wouldn't really be able to see the cream anyway. Okay, so that is pretty much it. I will probably be doing another, like a small background, but other than that, that's pretty much it for this video, other than, just some slight touches here and there. But anyways, that's pretty much it. Let me know what you guys think. Hopefully that this helped a bunch, and this was actually really fun to make. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.